Hello guys, welcome back to John's Workshop, and this is part 3 of the tailstock die holder series of videos that I'm doing, and this episode is going to focus maybe on the whole manufacture, or certainly the start of the manufacture of the sliding element. So we'll just hold that up. So we're going to make that in this episode. And probably the one after, depends how we go. So I've got a lump of steel, and this is the same steel that I made the fly cutter out of. I think it's a leaded mild steel. It's very free cutting. It's not got any corrosion properties at all. It is magnetic, so it's not stainless. I'm not really sure what it is, but it cuts very nicely. So basically the only thing that matters on this whole part, certainly for what I've got planned, is the concentricity of this 20mm bore to this front bore. So whatever happens with that, those two bores need to be machined at the same operation. The rest of it is really, it doesn't matter too much. The rest of it is all open limits. So there's various different ways to attack this. Obviously when I'm machining the two bores, it makes sense to do from the front this way. So you put the hole through, bore the 20mm, or bore the counter bore first and then bore the 20mm. Logic would dictate that typically with a part like this you'd do that end first, but what I'm actually going to do is turn this end first, that's all open limits, not put the hole through, and then I'm going to flip it round, hold on this area here, which is, it doesn't matter if I mark it too much because there's going to be a diamond knurl going on there afterwards. So I'm going to turn this end, finish that end off, turn it round, hold on this diameter that I've just turned, and then we'll do all the important stuff all in one go from the other end. So that's what we're going to do. So I'll bring you back when we're setting the lathe up. I'll focus in a bit closer on the setup, and we'll put some tools in and we'll crack on. So this bit of bar stock, you can see he's got a kind of a lump missing out of it. It will not matter because that's going to be the small end that we're going to turn now, or at least I don't think it will matter. We'll just see how much of that cleans up. Hopefully it'll all clean up, no bother. So I'm going to set it up the other way round. I've got 70mm is my drop, so we'll just see what we've got there. So yeah, we've got nearly 80 there, so I can set that right up as close to the chuck as possible. Make sure we've got a good hold of it, and we'll just get the tools loaded up. So I'll load the tool up, I'll reposition the camera, and we'll start turning the part up. So I'm still working without a carriage stop, still don't have a carriage stop. So what I'm going to do now is just mark roughly my 70mm position. With a marker pen, and then what we'll do is we'll obviously measure that as we get closer to finished size. It's only rough. That'll be enough when it's spinning for me to see that mark.
matter of time. It's funny old material, this. It's not happy chipping. I'm just going to go and get some measurement gear. I'll bring you back when we've had a quick measure up. Right, so we're aiming for 40mm. We're currently at 48.5. So I'm hoping that I'm going to clean this this bit out by the time I get down somewhere near size. If not, I've got enough length on here so I can always face a bit more off, take this shoulder a bit deeper, and there'll be enough length at the front to do what I need to do. So we'll see how we go. All things being equal, if I've still got a camera left, we should be at about 42.5 there, hopefully. .4, and that's pretty warm. So I'm just going to let that cool down. I'm going to give it a bit of help, because I don't want to try and finish it to size while it's that hot. So we'll just leave that a few minutes to cool down, and I'll bring you back, and I'm going to hopefully go for what I've shown in the previous video again about balance cuts to get to my finished size. So hopefully that will help somebody out. So I'll bring you back once this has cooled down a bit. Alright guys, that's cooled down now. It's probably about 30 degrees, something like that. It's not far off. So that's good enough. So I've just measured up again with 42.4 with a vernier. So what I'm going to do is take the 0.4 off and get rid of that, and then that should leave me 2mm, and I'm going to then take a 1mm cut, measure, make sure that with that amount of push off that I've got, that I have actually took a millimetre off, do the final correction, and then take the finish pass. So that's what we're going to do now. This is horrible material. I think if I didn't know any better, I would say it's a grade of stainless. Just by the colour of the swarf and the way it's cut in, it doesn't want to chip. It won't take a chemical black, but it's magnetic, So I don't know stainlesses that well. I know you can get what they call ferritic stainlesses that have got an element of carbon in them, which means they'll rust. But this doesn't rust at all. You know, this has been in the shop for 3 or 4 years, longer, and all my other bar ends that have just been kicking around have all rusted, but this hasn't. I'm convinced it's a stainless of some sort. But it won't chip very easily. Right, let's see what we've got. We should be at about 42. 4209. So we should be at 41 there. .97. So if I down another millimetre on, we should be pretty much bang on the 40mm by the time I finish. Not ideal having to stop down a finished cut, just trying to control the swarf that was wrapping all around the legs of the tripod. And if it had grabbed hold, it would have probably taken you all on a little journey. Right, let's just measure that again. We should be about 40mm there. 40.01. So that's another example of balance cuts. I only took 2 there at the same size. Normally I would take 3, so I'd take the first one at a millimetre, measure it, do any correction, take a second one at a millimetre, and a third one at whatever size you decide to choose depending on your material. I have left a couple of marks there where I've had to stop to control the swarf, but it's not the end of the world. That's going to be knurled anyway, that outer diameter. As I said, I want to use this as a sensitive drilling unit as well, so that the idea of knurling the OD means you've got something to get hold of then for using it as a drill, a sensitive drilling device. So I think we've cleaned up all of the damage that was on that end of the bar. So we just need to check the length now and make sure we get this right. Oh, I don't need to change anything, that was lucky. That was me working to my marker pen mark. I was aiming for 70. I'll live with 70.06. That's cleaned up well enough on that back face. So what we'll do now is we'll pop a couple of chamfers on. Put a reasonable size one on there because I'm going to obviously skim this OD, so I put a big enough one on that once I've skimmed the OD I don't need to come back and do anything with that back corner there. So that's the first side done. So we're going to take that out now, turn it round, and then we're going to do all the rest of the work from the other end. So I've flipped that round in the chuck, and the first job now is to face this to length, and I've just had a quick measure. Obviously this is a rough sawn surface, so it's only rough, but I'm about 7.5mm plus, so I'm going to take a couple of cuts off there, then we'll have another measure, and then we'll bring that to finished size using the compound slide. So I've got that faced off to finished length now, or it should be. I'm just going to double check it. So aiming for 30mm. Yeah, 30mm, dead on. My drawing, I've called out 60mm for this OD. It's quite arbitrary really. And the only reason I've gone that big is because I want a decent amount of wall thickness for the thread, for the bolt that's going to keep the cartridges captive. I think this is 60mm this bar, so we'll just double check it. It's actually 60.3. But I do want to skin that OD up just to clean it, so we'll just take that 0.3 off and see what it looks like. Just double check when we get out the back side that we're clear. Yeah. Smashing, putting the all the way around. That should be somewhere near 60 now. 60.04. That's good enough, and that is quite. Yeah, I can't bear my hand on there for long, so that'll probably come down 10 or 15 microns, I would have thought, as it cools. I'm just going to put a chamfer on this front edge now, on this front corner. I'm not measuring that, I've just made that visually the same as what I've got on the back at that point. So that's pretty much that's all the turning done now. Everything else is drilling and boring. So next job is to poke a hole through the middle of it, and I need to keep in mind the size of the bar that I've done, which is 19 point. I was aiming for 20. I'm about 10 thou under, so I'm about 19.75ish, something like that. So I'll see what drills I've got, and we'll take that out in stages. I'm convinced this is stainless of some sort, so it's not going to be. I've got to get through 100mm of material, so we're going to need to go through that in a couple of stages. So I'll look some drills out, and we'll come back and we'll start taking the bulk of the material out the middle.